are going to get into our discussion now on the upcoming season of the Celestial's Finest that dropped June 4th. We're recording this on June 7th. So let's go ahead and get into the cards. You ready?
Yes, sir.
All right. First up, Gilgamesh, 5 cost, 7 power. On reveal, +1 power for each of your other cards in play with increased power. Now, you got this season, didn't you?
Yes, I did.
Tell me all about Gilgamesh.
Well, I've always been kind of partial to Gilgamesh because when I started collecting Avengers, he was on the Avengers. I was like, wait a minute, there's Captain America and all these colorful people, and then there's a dude with brown shorts, or possibly a kilt. Then I found out he was an Eternal, and then Sersi showed up, and one of the formative comics of my youth was Eternals number 15. So I was like, hey, I know that lady. And I don't know, just always like, yeah, it's Gilgamesh. Anyway, that has very little to do with this because this is the movie version of Gilgamesh as played by a gentleman whose name I can't even begin to pronounce. Mad Dun Seok?
You tried.
Also known as Don Lee.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm going to call him Don Lee.
Don Lee's good to go.
Yeah. So yeah, not familiar with him, but I don't know. He kind of reminds me of he's kind of a bigger guy. So it kind of reminds me of like Chow Yun Fat or Sammo Hung.
Okay.
From back in the day. So I've been experimenting with decks with him this week, and I've had some good luck with him. I mean, heck, even when he gets pigged, he's a 5/7. So
they did the first hot location this season was Xandar. Yeah. I mean, I assume that helped Gilgamesh, right?
Ultimately, because that's I was trying to figure out who can I get to boost up powers, and one of my first thoughts was just playing with Guardians of the Galaxy.
Yeah.
Because all of them can boost, but unless you start doubling it up, it doesn't get really powerful. Like I was playing a friend of mine last night. He was the one who used Sage with Thor and Beta Ray Bill, and I was using my finesse in my mind. Jean Grey and Guardians of the Galaxy and Gilgamesh deck, and it just couldn't keep up.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I mean, he was doubling his people up and then tossing Spider-Ham in there, had the werewolf bouncing around.
Okay.
So I stole a lot of his deck and won a few with it. But yeah, Gilgamesh is good. Actually, who I ended up playing him with a lot more is Nakia and Okoye.
Okay.
Nakia will raise the power of everybody in your hand. Okoye will raise the power of everybody in your deck. So now they won't be boosted, but you get them in succession. You can make sure everybody else is boosted. So yeah,
right.
I mean, I usually have no trouble getting Gilgamesh into double digits. I mean, you only need 3 to do that. But then there's been other times where I'm like, okay, I'm ready to play Gilgamesh, and somehow I've only got 2 boosted cards out there. So
Silver Surfer. Like,
but you'd have to play him after Surfer.
Yeah,
but
he'd have to wait till turn 6.
Yeah,
I mean, if you got Magic in your deck, you get a turn 7,
which I usually do using Surfer. So, and he works nicely with your new favorite Eternal.
Yeah. So that'd be next up. That's Thena. 2 cost. That's who you're talking about, right? 2 cost, 1 power after each turn, +3 power if you've played exactly 2 cards. I ended up spinning the spotlight key to get Thena this week. There's going to be cards in here that I want to get, and I somehow avoided getting MODOK again. So anyway, yeah, I ended up with her and I put her in a deck. I remember this deck when I created it. I was like, I'm just throwing stuff in here. The key things that's going to work with Thena are probably Kitty Pryde, because you can lay her down in addition to any other card and keep your costs low. What's interesting is I found
you put Wasp in there.
Wasp would work. I mean, I guess that's a good point. You got Wasp, you can lay out anything along with it. That's actually a really good point. I don't have her in my deck. You can also wait and play Thena on turn 3 with a 1 power card, and she gets the boost. I watched that happen a couple times. Yeah, I've got her to double digits real easy because with +3. I mean, if you're getting her out there on turn 2, there's a possibility of 3, 4, 5, 6, another 12 power on top of that if you're doing 2 cards each turn. I was winning a lot. And the deck that I have her in is a Shanna Kazar deck.
Oh, nice.
Martyr's in there. So Martyr's getting, that's 1 cost, 5 power, and all the lanes, the best result is every lane is full.
Yeah.
Kazar's throwing whatever his bonus is on top of it. Thena's pumped up to a massive amount. And
Oh
you've
yeah,
got
Martyr would be good in my boosters deck where I try to fill up everything with Ultron.
she ain't moving. She'll stay exactly where she's supposed to be.
I immediately tossed Martyr onto the Iron Slot deck because if your
Don't
power is
matter.
evenly divided, there's little chance she can move. So if she moves away from Iron Man or whatever, I suppose it's possible. I don't know if Martyr does that kind of math, but yeah, that's where I put her. But now that you mentioned that, that would be another good deck to try her in.
Yeah, definitely.
Sorry, we were talking about Thena. It only took, 4 months for us to be like, hey, Martyr can be useful.
Right.
I mean, it's a great effect. I don't know much about the character, but just with the name, it's a terrific effect.
Right.
Just not very useful.
I agree. Did you have any thoughts on Thena?
No, I mean, I did want her. She was higher on my list. That may have something to do with the fact that some of the early Eternals comics, Thena really became one of my favorites. There was this whole, she was in love with a deviant, and then she went to try some diplomacy with the deviants and came back with two of them as kind of like her projects. This huge monstrous dude named Carcass, who was basically a poet that didn't want to fight anybody, and this super handsome guy called Reject because all the deviants made fun of him because he just looked like a scrawny human. She kept trying to change his name to Sweet Prince, and he's like, no, I'll keep Reject. But there was an annual where it felt like a pilot episode or a first issue of the three of them fighting crime, and it was amazing.
Oh, wow.
Two of my favorite Eternals characters are deviants because of that. So I like that. It might have something to do with Angelina Jolie, But as it got closer, I was just looking at all these other cards coming out, and I'm like, I like Thena, but I don't know. Now you and another friend of mine are telling me she's good, but I did the one spotlight key because I got Grandmaster, and then I'm like, so I got a 1 in 3 chance of getting 1,000 tokens, which would be nice, but I'm pretty close to 6,000 anyway. Thena or a MODOK variant. I've made my peace with MODOK. But Pixel MODOK's enough for me.
I agree.
MODOK, no problems, am I right? So I figure Thena seems to me like somebody that I will look forward to getting out of a future Spotlight cache.
Okay.
Be wrong. If I get slapped around by a bunch of Thenas, keep in mind that 2 of the 3 cards I got last season were ones that I was like, I'll get them later. And the one that I was like, that's the one I want, I didn't even try for.
I understand.
But right now, honestly, of the Spotlight cards, she's probably number 5 on my list, and that's not because I think she's bad at all.
All right. Next up is Sersi. 5 cost, 7 power. On reveal, transform your other cards here into random cards that cost 1 more, if able. And I think this is number 1 on my target list this season.
Seems pretty chaotic.
Yeah, I am down for, trying to, I just want to see what kind of craziness could happen. I'm trying to think, is there a card? Maybe it's in this. No, it's not. Is there a card that for each card that is not in your deck, the cost low, or that's on the board, the cost lowers?
Oh, Mockingbird.
There it is. Yeah, okay.
I like that.
So there you go. Mockingbird. With Sersi, that'd be fun. I like the thought of this. I like, watching somebody who thinks they have a lane down. But the thing is that it's kind of overkill because you're laying a 5 cost, 7 power onto your best obvious effect would be if you've got 3 other cards there. I mean, maybe 3 1 cost cards, then you lay in a 5 or a 7 power card down there, and all those 1 costs boot up to a 2 and you get more power somehow while you already got 7. Maybe, I guess it's a lane changer.
Well, you know who I want to use her with?
Tell me.
Brood. Play Brood, get 2 more. You got 3 cards there, drop her in. You're bumping everything up to a 4. That could be chaotic. Of course, one of them could be a Tuma, or Typhoid Mary.
There's a 2 cost. It's Sinister, right? That's a 2 cost that splits. Okay. Yeah. And I was just sitting there thinking Surfer deck, layout. You get 2 costs that boost up to a 3 cost, and Surfer could help them out.
She'd also be good to follow up, some of the cards that have good effects but not good power, like Ironheart and Mr. Negative.
True.
I don't know that you build a whole deck that way, but if you got somebody who you bring them there to do their on reveal, and then they're just taking up space at the hood. I'm a little surprised she doesn't turn anything into pigs, because that was a big thing. A lot of the Eternals characters, their names are reminiscent of figures from mythology, and there were references in the early comics to her turning people into pigs, like the Sersi of myth.
Oh, that's funny. All right, well,
but instead she'd be turning Spider-Ham into Mr. Sinister or something.
Next up is Makkari. 3 cost, 3 power. After the turn, runs from your hand to a random location if possible. And yeah, I think my notes on here were, I wonder what the limitations are for this. I mean, I would assume Sanctum Sanctorum is going to be an option. Anything that's flooded is just essentially not locked down.
I would assume. I'm not sure. She might not be able to get to those. She's the one that I thought was getting off on a tangent from the game, but they changed just about everybody's ethnicity and in some cases gender in the Eternals movie. And I don't have a problem with that, because if you're like, hey, let's have a team of a bunch of white guys. Okay.
That could be problematic.
I get it. Some of it I didn't understand. Like, they took the one Eternal who was canonically not Caucasian, Kingo, and changed his race.
Yeah.
Didn't get that. I can't pronounce the guy's name that played him and made him a Bollywood star throughout the generations. I like the idea. But Makkari was one of the 3 original Eternals I met in that comic. And I didn't even know anything about him except that he looked kind of cool. He was just another white dude, and they turned him into a super speedster who's like deaf and uses sign language. That's cool. I hadn't seen that before. So, I didn't feel like we lost anything with Makkari. Now they took one of the cool movie characters and have a cool effect. You know me, I love getting cards for less than they cost or nothing. To me, if I get her, she goes in my Surfer deck, because that's another 3 cost card that I don't have to spend anything to put down.
Oh, that's right. That's nice.
So, I mean, now I'll get there and I'll be like, hey, well, who do I leave out of my Surfer deck? But to me, if you draw her, you got her, and Surfer can boost her up. So that seems like a no-brainer to me. She's probably my number 2. She looks more fun than what my number 1 card is, because there's one card that's so effective that I can't put anything else ahead of it. Not as fun, but there's no denying that you'd want that in your deck.
Okay. All right. Well, next up then, it's going to be
Phastos.
Phastos, 3 cost, 3 power. On reveal, give each card in your deck -1 cost or +2 power. Is this the card you're talking about?
Yeah. I mean, how can you? Andy's a 3 cost. Put him in the Surfer deck. I mean, he's another one. Like, at what point do you say to yourself, man, I guess if it pushes a card from a 9 to an 11, maybe that's a problem with Shang-Chi. But really, at what point do you find yourself saying, I wish this card cost more or was less powerful?
Yeah, right. There's no drawback to it whatsoever. I'm going to give each card in your deck +2 power. Okay, more power. Great. Oh, now they cost, oh, no, you know what? 1 cost less. Great.
I got the feeling that it's like an instant thing and every card either gets +2 or -1, but I'm not sure what that's based on.
Oh.
I mean, I'm not sure why I think that's the answer. That, to me, is the easiest, most direct interpretation of it, but I don't know if that's right. But I hope to find out real soon.
Yes, indeed. And I love your note here, because it just occurred to me that, this next card...
He also works quite well with Gilgamesh, because you'd have a bunch of boosted cards for power, too.
That's true. Well, then let's talk about Arishem.
Yes.
All right. 7 cost, 7 power. At the start of the game, +1 max energy. Shuffle 12 random cards into your deck. So I'll let you have the floor on this one, because it seemed like you had a better understanding of this card than I did originally. What are your thoughts on Arishem?
Oh, when I first saw this, I thought it just switched out your whole deck with random cards. And I'm like, so what's the point of even having a deck?
Yeah,
then
right.
A friend of mine explained to me, no, it doubles the size of your deck. So now all those new cards won't activate the collector. And also at a 7/7, I think Arishem has more of a cost to him than the High Evolutionary. Because he's a 7/7 and you need that, extra power just to even play him. Otherwise, he's nigh unto useless.
Right.
I be careful if he shuffles a havoc into your deck. Well, I don't know. The 7/7 you don't really need to play. But
I was going to say,
I mean, if nothing else, it just looks fun.
Oh yeah. Yeah, it's cool.
Now, some people are already getting strategic with them. I mean, you definitely want to run Quinjet and Mockingbird. Oh, and you put in there Mystique. So yeah, you get -2 on those. Imagine the chaos if you play Phastos and 24 cards or thereabouts there would be some in your hand. So it'd be less than 20 probably, but still. Play Phastos and get 18 cards with -1 cost or +2 power.
Gosh, could you imagine?
It's going to get crazy. A lot of people are excited about this guy. I have a feeling we will see him very soon in a lot of games after he is released, which is why I'm going to make sure to be packing a Darkhawk deck that week.
Smart stuff right there.
And then somebody I saw in the developer video, they're like, hey, and you can combine him with Thanos and make the biggest deck ever. And I'm like, oh, here comes Darkhawk.
Well, somebody was said they were using that picture that you sent me had, what's her name? Oh my goodness. Agatha. Yeah. What was that about?
I don't know. Actually, earlier today, I did come up with another potential Agatha deck. Don't know why. But yeah, what was it? But no, the one that I liked is because, a frequent star of my top fives is M'Baku. Yeah. And so you put M'Baku in that deck, there's even less chance of drawing him. And so more chance of him jumping in. And hey, maybe if you play Phastos, he jumps in as a 4-power.
Oh, man.
Hey, play Okoye and Phastos, he jumps in as a 5-power. I know I'm getting very elaborate just to maybe get a random 5-power. But I'm sorry, Jesse, the best feeling in Snap is when M'Baku comes out of nowhere.
Oh, man. My last stream, M'Baku showed up on my side, and I screamed. Because it ended up winning me the game.
Yeah, so if I get Arishem, I'm getting M'Baku in that deck.
Love it.
And yeah, maybe if I get Phastos, I'm counting my Eternals before they hatch, but get Phastos and Okoye in there.
It'll be fun. This will be fun. All right, locations. So World Forge. Replace one of the other locations each turn. So that's fun. It's going to be fun to watch people try to deal with World Forge messing up locations left and right. I think as far as playability, the chaos is going to be there. It doesn't give me an advantage. I think that's probably why I'm complaining about it, because I don't have an advantage. It's just going to be, I am now at the mercy of the chaos, and I don't like it.
Think about if you Legion the World Forge.
Oh, well, I thought about that.
Like locations are you going to cycle through in a single turn?
My honest guess would be that what would happen is if you World Forged, the first World Forge replaces one, and then the other one replaces the other. It would be fun to watch to see what happens.
How many worlds could a World Forge forge? If a World Forge could forge worlds.
Good stuff.
Be a good addition to an AI-generated song about tongue twisters.
Yeah, maybe there's one out there. There might be one. Okay, did you have any thought? I'm going to be excited. I will be playing. I'll probably be streaming for sure. I thought World Forge was going to show up this past week, and I was like, oh, I'm excited, and I'm going to play and stream, and never did because it was Xandar instead. So, all right, that's fine. You got any thoughts on World Forge?
Man, I'm just imagining you waiting like, okay, what is it? Oh, no, it changed before I could get Legion.
It's going to be so fun, man. Just to watch, locations get changed to, just like you were thinking, Sanctum Sanctorum. Nobody can play there that turn. And then it's going to change again. It will make the game interesting. I will say that for sure. For sure. All right, next up, Eternals Arc. After turn 5, flood the other locations.
This feels more like Noah's Ark than the Eternals Arc.
You're right.
I'm no expert on Eternals. I read the original series, and you can check out over at Magazines and Monsters, me, Billy D, and Ed going through the Thor Eternals saga, aka How Thor Met His Mother. But those are some fun comics. But the Ark, I assume, is that ship from the movie, which also didn't flood everything. So
it is strange.
But wait a minute, it also works thematically with Thena because you want to be playing cards 2 by 2.
Oh, what in the world? That is very strange.
I don't think that was intentional.
No, I doubt it was, but it is interesting that you're drawing the parallels here. But yeah, my notes for this are like, okay, you're going to flood the other locations on turn 5. So, it will be, as soon as it pops up, I think this will be one of the ones where people are just packing Scarlet Witch magic, or they're going to have Rhino. Yeah. When this shows up, it's going to be annoying for people, and they're going to want to turn it as soon as it shows up. So, and yes, I've thought about legioning it, but my strategy was when that happens, when Eternals Arc shows up, if you can get away with it not being changed, then fill up that location with cards that fly over to the other side.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Then when
Nocturne, Jeff, Nightcrawler, Vision.
Yeah. And then when that flood ends up happening, you can play whatever you need to play. It's after turn 5, so it's going to be turn 6.
Quake shenanigans.
True. Quake shenanigans would be fun.
You know, watch everybody fill it up and then put their power card on the arc, turn 6, and then flip it over there, and they've already got a full location. It's the only place they can play.
Yeah. Any other thoughts on that one?
That's about it. Don't want to make this discussion too watered down.
Goodness. Folks, this has been our discussion on the upcoming season of Marvel Snap, the Celestials' finest. So now what we are going to get into is our top 5 card animations, I guess.
Well, hang on a second, Jesse.
Huh? What?
Well, I was working on my top 5 card animations. I came up with a bonus top 5 based specifically on the Celestials' finest.
All right, well, let's hear it.
Okay, so let's look back at our spotlight cards and go back to a classic question that was posed to many of us as children. One of these things is not like the other.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I know I've said I like it when they mix up the characters but stay true to the theme, but we got 4 Eternals here, and then we got a Celestial.
Then we got a Celestial, right.
So I came up with the top 5 Eternals that they could have included in this season instead of Arishem. Now, I know everybody's excited about Arishem, and if you don't put him here, I'm not sure where you'd put him. I don't think you could sell a whole season of just Celestials as spotlight characters, even though I'm sure everybody would be very curious how Oneg the Prober would play. That is an actual Marvel character.
Oh, that's great.
Oneg the Prober. There's other guys like Zuron the Tester and somebody the something, but somehow Oneg the Prober lodged in my brain. But anyway, if they were to go, just full Eternals, who might they have picked instead? First of all, Jesse, let me ask you a little trivia question, because I know you like trivia.
I do.
Who was the only Eternal in the game before this season?
Ooh, oh my goodness. I'm racking my brain trying to think. Is it somebody that's obvious?
It's not only are they obvious, Jesse, they're inevitable.
Okay, so never mind. That is Thanos.
Yes, Thanos is a Titan Eternal. Somewhere back in Marvel Comics history, the Eternals had a falling out, and some of them left Earth and went to Titan, the moon of Saturn.
Got it.
And that's where Thanos was raised, and at least some tellings, he had the deviant gene, which is why he looks like a purple Skrull on steroids.
Yes.
So, but of course, he wasn't the only Titan Eternal. There was his dad, Mentor. That was his name. And number 5 on my list, Star Fox. He almost got pushed out. That's Thanos' brother. He went by Eros. I always thought he had a cool-looking costume, and he was one of those characters that I really liked, despite having read very little with him in it. And then somebody decided, let's take a look at his powers, which was listed in the old TSR Marvel role-playing game as a psionic tickle, which is one of the names I considered for a band I've never. Basically, he stimulates the pleasure centers in the brain and makes people more suggestive to what he wants to do. And I'm like, oh, so he could calm down the Hulk. And everybody's like, no, what this means is he's a mega pervert.
Yes, indeed.
And so, yeah, recent portrayals of Star Fox, not the rollicking, adventurous superhero that I thought of. Very hypersexualized dude, kind of a creep. But young Evan remembers, I just thought Star Fox looked cool in the 80s, had a cool name that somebody at Nintendo ripped off. He's an Eternal, he's an Avenger, and now nobody really quite knows what to do with him. So probably not, but that's why he's at number 5. He's one of the higher profile Eternals, or he used to be.
The first time I ever saw Star Fox was Infinity Gauntlet. And it was nightmare fuel when
no mouth.
Thanos removed his mouth. Pretty frightening. Anyway, go ahead.
So number 4, probably one of the more likable or memorable characters from the movie, and these are all pretty much based on the movie, although the comics changed their characters to reflect the movie pretty quickly, and that's Kingo. And I should have looked up how to pronounce the dude's name that played him, because he did a good job, and he was the gag with him was he was a Bollywood star who stayed in the spotlight despite being immortal by constantly remaking himself as his own son.
Man.
And also one of the few Eternals to be referenced outside the Eternals movie in the MCU. In the Ms. Marvel series, she and a guy are discussing their favorite Kingo movies.
That's great, Kingo.
Kingo, yeah, he was a Japanese actor who did like samurai movies in the comics. And like I said, I don't get. I mean, like Kamal Nanjiani, that's the guy who played him. He was great, very entertaining. Liked him a lot in the movie, but I don't know if you're going for diversity, why you like changed the one Eternal that was diverse.
Right.
But I mean, I liked what they did with him. It just didn't quite make sense to me. But I feel like he was one of the more likable and memorable ones from the movie, and so he would have been a good one to slot in here since they were going with the movie version. Now, speaking of multicultural Eternals, Kingo may have been the only one originally, but in 2000, what did they call this issue? As I was reading about the Eternals in advance of the movie, I discovered a one-shot called New Eternals Apocalypse Now.
Oh, boy.
The Eternals taking on Apocalypse of X-Men fame, and a whole group of New Eternals, including a Canadian one who I would have loved to have seen join Alpha Flight just to torment our mutual friend Chris Bailey. And if there's one thing he loves more than Alpha Flight, it's the Eternals. But there was one of them who went by the name Sayodi. His human alias was Thomas Hawk. His superhero code name, I kid you not, was Tomorrow Hawk. I don't remember what else he did other than fly and look, like I don't know if stereotypical is the right word. I mean, he adopted the garb of Native Americans, but that wordplay is so great. Like, is it culturally insensitive? I don't think so. I'm not really one to judge, but I just like Tomorrow Hawk. It's like, who came up with that, and why didn't anyone come up with it before?
Right.
So it's just the name. That's it. I don't remember anything else about him. I'm not sure there needs to be anything else remembered about him. Tomorrow Hawk.
That's great.
Okay. Number 2 is the headlining Eternal in Marvel for many years. The guy that if you said Eternals, he instantly appeared in your mind like He-Man wearing a sweater designed by Jack Kirby. That's Icarus.
Icarus, right.
Icarus introduced in Eternals number 1, tagging along to the Celestials' base of operations with Dr. Damien and his daughter Margot. Icarus traveling under the alias Ike Harris. So he was like the main dude in the Eternals. He was, like the Superman or the Cyclops of the Eternals. And they went a different direction in the movie.
Yes, they did.
But I would have liked to have seen that Icarus, the original costume. That's just classic. And he was the Eternal in Marvel.
The Eternal. Yeah. It was me and Robert Cooper, I think, who sat down and read the Eternals. Oh, my goodness. Neil Gaiman?
Yeah.
Did the Eternals. So Eternals were way out of my wheelhouse. And I sat down and read the Neil Gaiman Eternals. I didn't hate it, but that was pretty much my introduction to all these characters before the movie came around.
Well, I know you're not a cosmic guy. It's not necessarily my cup of tea either, but if you get a chance sometime to just read the original series and then the Thor stuff, at least until they forget about the Eternals entirely for 7 issues, it's a lot of fun.
Okay.
And that Thor storyline is where I met number 1 on my list. Because, yes, Icarus was the mascot, the poster boy for the Eternals, but he's not the Eternal that I and I think a lot of other people would really like to see in Marvel.
Oh, boy. I can't wait.
And that character debuted in Thor issue 290, which featured Thor trying to learn the secret of the Eternals and the Celestials, cast out of Asgard, flying over Los Angeles when he encounters El Vampiro.
Oh, here we go. The only reason I know about El Vampiro is you.
You're welcome.
Yes.
The first Marvel Snap character whose luchador variant would be his base card. Because El Vampiro is an Eternal with sharp teeth who dresses like a bat and is a professional wrestler. Masked professional wrestler. And Thor meets him after he's just lost a brutal grudge match to El Toro Rojo, who is a deviant and a very powerful deviant. And that is one of my favorite comics that I've ever read. It's absolutely insane. You think it's just this throwaway fill-in story, except Thor is out of the deviant Eternals war and suddenly right back in it in a wrestling ring. At one point, he's separated from his hammer, so he turns back into Don Blake. His hammer turns back into a walking stick, and El Toro Rojo is such a jerk that he steals the walking stick of the doctor with the bad leg.
Oh, what a heel.
So as he's roughing up another mere human wrestler, Don Blake puts on a mask and limps into the wrestling ring And Jesse, Thor number 290. It's on Marvel Unlimited. I think you can find it in Hoopla in the Thor Celestial collections. It's gloriously insane.
I love it.
El Vampiro has shown up a couple other times, but he doesn't need to. That comic etched his place in comic history and in my heart, and should be more than enough to get him into Marvel Snap. The rate they're going through characters, I feel like it's only a matter of time.
It's, for crying out loud, is it a built-in luchador variant? I mean, is that what we're seeing?
The luchador variant is the base card. He was married to a human woman, and like Thor's like, man, that must be difficult being an immortal and all this. I mean, all that was packed into this goofy story about masked wrestlers.
Oh, it's good stuff.
With a cameo by Lou Ferrigno, even.
Wow.
Thor's flying over LA. He's like, holy crap, the Hulk's rampaging. Oh, no, it's just a TV show.
It's just a TV show. What year what year did that come out again?
What year did that come out? I want to say late 70s.
Yeah, 79.
There you go.
I found it. No.
Number magnificent.
That's great stuff.
That is my bonus top 5 Eternals they could have included in Arishem's slot in this season.
Beautiful stuff right there. Fantastic stuff. Thanks a lot for joining us. Make sure to tune in tomorrow for the next installment of Snap Material.